Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kazmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. ECOWAS Court of Justice dismisses all 7 allegations of human rights violations brought by former Chief Justice Gertrude Araba, Esaaba, Torkornoo in connection with her suspension and subsequent removal from office as Ghana's Chief Justice. Also on the program this afternoon, about 80 illegally fabricated changfan platforms destroyed on Offin River as authorities intensify efforts to clamp down on illegal mining activities. Later on the program, we'll find out how a solid defense backline neutralized key English threats in Ghana's second World Cup game with England last night. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice has dismissed the suit filed by former Chief Justice of Ghana, Gertrude Araba, Esaaba, Torkornoo, challenging her suspension and subsequent removal from office. The former CJ argued that the process leading to her removal was arbitrary, unfair, and violated her fundamental human rights, claiming it exposed her to public ridicule and damaged her reputation. However, in its ruling, the ECOWAS Court dismissed all the reliefs sought by Madam Torkornoo, stating that there was insufficient evidence to support claims of bias, bad faith, or ill will on the part of the committee that investigated the petitions against her, or in the president's decision to remove her from office. My colleague Beatrice Adu Lancer monitored proceedings at the court. She joins me live in the studio with some details you might have missed if you didn't monitor that. Beatrice, just take us through really some of the key reliefs sought, first of all, by the former Chief Justice and how the ECOWAS Court addressed all those requests in its ruling.
Right, Beatrice. So this is what the court did in delivering its ruling. It highlighted the allegations, spoke about what the respondents' reactions were, led by the Attorney General representing the government of Ghana or the state, and then gave its determination. So on the issue of a right to fair hearing, the former Chief Justice said she was not given fair hearing in determination of a prima facie and also before the committee. Well, the court concluded that her rights were not violated. It established that a prima facie is a filtering mechanism and didn't require for her to respond exactly before a prima facie was determined. It also determined that the respondent fulfilled all its obligations under the law, both Ghanaian law and under Article 7 of the African Charter on Human Rights. So it dismissed that she did not have a right to fair hearing. On the issue of competence and impartiality of the committee, where she raised issues about Justice Palmang hearing a matter involving one of the petitioners, the court determined that this ground was without merit. It dismissed it altogether and mentioned in terms of the committee and the handling of its work and procedures, it said that the courts of Ghana have jurisdiction of procedural matters of quasi-judicial bodies and that court did not have. On the findings of the committee not supported by evidence as alleged by the former Chief Justice, the court said that in order to make a determination on this matter, it would have to review the committee's findings and said it declined to do that because as the ECOWAS Court of Justice, it did not have jurisdiction on that. Now, when it comes to the issue of unlawful suspension or unlawful removal, it cited the case that it had heard earlier in a similar matter, Paul Derry versus the Republic of Ghana, and mentioned that suspension does not violate an applicant's right right to work. The court also said the applicant was not unfairly and arbitrarily removed from the office as CJ of Ghana following the processes that were involved, and it maintained that the contention in this issue is without merit and accordingly dismissed. The former Chief Justice also had an issue with the committee looking into only one of the 3 petitions that were brought against her. The court says the hearing of a single petition was not irregular, and again did emphasize about the lack of jurisdiction in determining how certain procedures have to be followed.
And that's like the second time the court is citing lack of jurisdiction over this matter.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to the issue of her dignity and she being treated unfairly in her estimation, and she cites issues like a bodily search before appearing before the committee. She's saying that some leaks exposed her to public ridicule, and also the fact that her husband and children were not allowed to sit in some of the hearings. The court determined that the search and the security measures that were put in place were reasonable and proportionate measures due to the nature of the case. On the issue of media leaks and the public commentary over this matter, it also said that the high-profile nature of this case made it an inevitable subject to be discussed within the media space, and also mentioned that persons of such high profile must subject themselves to the high level of scrutiny and be more tolerant to some of these things. It also said that she did not provide any evidence that her uncle was indeed murdered at the facility that was used for her hearing, and also did not provide any evidence that it was selected to traumatize her. Now, on the issue of removing her while the matter was pending, now if you remember, when she got suspended, she went to the ECOWAS Court to set aside her suspension pending the determination of the committee's work.
And that was even after the press conferences, right?
Right. So the court says that even if it went ahead to make a determination on that earlier case, Ghana as a member state is not obliged to subject itself to the determination of that court. That is, that it is not binding on member states. Now, the issue of a violation of her right to information. Now, she had said on issues of being given the petition and also the committee's findings, the basis of which she was eventually removed from office, the court said that it agrees that as a matter of right, she needs to know the basis of which she was removed from office, and that would even grant her the opportunity, if so, in determining whether she wants to appeal the decision or not. However, she did not provide any evidence that she had made a formal request and was denied. So the court determined that the committee did not have to proactively give her the findings on its own, but that she must request for it. Once she didn't do that and there was no evidence of a pushback from the committee, it dismissed that allegation as well. So in general, what happened today is that the ECOWAS Court of Justice basically dismissed all allegations of human rights violations by the former CJ, and her demand for a $10 million
exactly, I was going to go to that.
Was also denied.
Why?
Because the court says that there was no justification for that because no human rights violations were established.
And therefore, you're not entitled to that $10 million you're asking for. Thank you very much, Beatrice Adu. My colleague, bring us details of that ECOWAS court. It actually held had a hearing earlier this morning. Let's now turn to private legal practitioner and former member of parliament for Alexander Aban. He joins us live on the phone. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, he'll be joining us very shortly, but let's listen a bit to what transpired at the ECOWAS court earlier this morning.
The court considers that the respondent fulfilled its obligation by affording the applicant an opportunity to submit written responses to the petition, not only before the presidential determination of whether a prima facie case existed, but before her right to be heard crystallized at the hearing of the committee. Accordingly, the court finds that the respondent did not violate the applicant's right to be heard under Article 7 of the African Charter. Regarding the issue whether the failure of the president to provide a reasoned decision in the support of the prima facie determination violates the applicant's right to fair hearing, the court reiterates its earlier observations that prima facie determination is a filtering mechanism rather than a judicial or partial determination of rights of an individual, to which guarantees of Article 7 of the African Charter, including the right to reasoned decision, apply. The allegation in that regard is therefore dismissed. The court notes that matters relating to the procedure of national courts or tribunal, quasi-judicial bodies, as well as the competence or compatibility of witnesses, compellability of witnesses to testify, are issues that are primarily regulated by national laws of member states. Even that issues related to whether the petitioner ought to have testified and which rules of procedure should have been applied by the committee are matters of Ghanaian law, over which the court has neither original nor appellate jurisdiction. The court considers that they fall outside its mandate and they are accordingly dismissed. In view of the foregoing, the court concludes that the applicant was not denied the right to fair hearing under Article 7 of the African Charter in the President's determination of prima facie case, and also that the committee, and also before the committee appointed to determine the petition against her. The issue for determination, the first issue for determination is thereby dismissed. The second issue for determination is whether, contrary to Article 7 of the African Charter, the committee set up to determine the petition against the committee was not competent and impartial tribunal. On this issue, the applicant submits that the composition of the committee inquiry was defective. Regarding applicant's claim that a consequential removal from office as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is unlawful and violates her right to work, particularly that the petition was not for the removal as Justice of the Supreme Court, the court is persuaded by the respondent's submission, which were well supported by relevant provisions of Ghanaian law, that the applicant's membership of further superior court flows ex officio from her office as Chief. Such other superior courts include Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the High Court, for which no separate removal proceedings are required.
And you had a bit of the proceedings at the ECOWAS Court earlier this morning. We'll bring you some more as well as a quick analysis on this with a lawyer very shortly. But ahead of that, the Narcotics Control Commission, NARCOC, says it has arrested the alleged lead shipper linked to the attempted trafficking of a large consignment of methamphetamine from Ghana to Australia. According to the Director General of NARCOC, Brigadier Momante, investigations into the case have advanced significantly and more arrests are expected in the coming days as security agencies work to dismantle the entire trafficking network. The latest development follows the interception by Australian authorities of approximately 320 kilograms of methamphetamine concealed in a shipment of charcoal originating from Ghana. The drugs were seized in Australia as part of a joint international cooperation involving Australian law enforcement agencies and their counterparts in Ghana. NARCOC subsequently launched investigations to identify all persons connected to the trafficking attempt. The Director General said intelligence gathered so far point to the involvement of a wider criminal syndicate and assured the public that all those found culpable would be brought to justice.
Enterprise. This afternoon, we'll be picking more. Whoever is involved, and like I always say, it is only God and the courts that can free you. We'll get to the bottom of this enterprise and make sure that Ghana will not be declared as a narco state. It is our determination that after the World Drugs Day on Friday, we are going to go out and hunt for those whose activity or whose business is to just sell drugs to destroy our young ones. Like my deputy always says, this is just the grace period. If you know you are involved in it, I'm only advising you, because we will come after you. And nobody, and I say nobody, apart from God and the courts, who can free you. Please send a message across, and I want to encourage you, the press guys gathered here, ladies and guys gathered here, to assist us send a message across. It is just not right to sell something that you know will affect the national security of this country. It will affect our young and upcoming ones, and it will destroy their health. Please send a message across. We'll partner you to work towards that agenda.
And you had the Director General of the Narcotics Control Commission, Brigadier Maumante, bring us updates on the investigations into drugs. Meanwhile, the Narcotics Control Commission is this morning also undertaking one of its usual routines where intercepted narcotics are destroyed by burning at Bondase. The Director General, Brigadier Maumante, together with his deputy and other officials from relevant agencies, including Ghana Standards Authority, are on this exercise. NACOC says members have acquired destruction certificate from the court to undertake this exercise, with the Ghana Standards Authority present to confirm the items being destroyed as a clearance to speculations that synthetic stuff are destroyed, leaving the real items. George Quaining is with them. He joins us live on the phone. George, what more can you tell us?
Yeah. Where do you see this?
George Quaining, if you can hear me, can you tell us more about this exercise?
Yeah, Beatrice, thank you so much for your time. We are still here, actually, and then so I want to give you the quantity-wise of the items that were subsequently destroyed.
Hello, George. I'm sorry, we've lost George Quaining on the line there. It seems his line is not so... Okay, George, please go ahead.
Yeah. So let me give you the quantity-wise of the substances that were destroyed. There was 9.6 tons of cannabis, 46.89 kilograms of cocaine, and 2,734 bottles of cannabis-laced drinks, and 130 boxes of hemp-related products and others. So, like you actually mentioned, the NACOC actually had destruction certificates from court to destroy them, and some of the items were actually intercepted as far back as 2021. And according to the Commissioner General, these destroyed items represented thousands of doses of, what could have actually destroyed homes, could have actually endangered the lives of young people, actually strengthened criminal networks, among others. And so it's a feat for them. They actually have fought some of these things. So it's a strong warning to people that are into the sale of, cannabis and other, narcotic items. So people who are into that drug, the narcotics says they are coming after you. They don't want you to actually make money at the expense of people's lives. So basically, that's what is a strong message out there. And you also mentioned that the lead shipper in the Australian meth canal has also been arrested. More of them are going to be arrested and then suing them. So it's a strong warning to people out there who are into that very business at beaches.
Thank you very much, George Quaining. We'll come back to you for more on this. George Quaining is my colleague currently with NACOC and the Ghana Standards Authority as they destroy some drugs, narcotics, as it were. Let's return to our earlier story about the ECOWAS Court dismissing all the petitions filed at the court by former Chief Justice Gertrude, Araba, Esaaba, Torkornoo. I'm joined on the line now by private legal practitioner and Member of Parliament for Gomo West in the Central Region, a former Member of Parliament for that area. Good afternoon to you, sir. Mr. Alexander Aban, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
What are the most significant implications of the ECOWAS Court's decision today, particularly its finding that there was no evidence of bias or ill will in the removal process of the former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo?
Thank you very much.
Hello, Lawyer Aban, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, please.
First of all, we have to look at what she took to the court, that her human rights had been abused, and for that reason she was asking for some compensation of $10 million. And this is what has been dismissed. The Attorney General, on behalf of the country, filed a case that the ECOWAS Court did not have jurisdiction, I think that leg of the case was also dismissed, meaning that they asserted their jurisdiction over the matter and rather said that there was no ill will or bias anywhere. We would just respect the decision of the court, but as a watcher of legal proceedings, I have my own reservations, and I disagree with.
You think the court had double standards? In one point, you say you don't have jurisdiction, but in another case, you're pronouncing judgment. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not even saying that. The court said they have jurisdiction because they dismissed that claim by the Attorney General. So I'm not saying that the court is saying they didn't have jurisdiction. The court rather asserted its jurisdiction, that they actually have jurisdiction to entertain the matter.
But in some cases, it said it did not have jurisdiction over those certain
yes,
of
but
the
in
claims.
this particular case, so sometimes, international law itself, sometimes the debate has always been whether it is law properly so called. Because the point is that if they had even granted the reliefs of the former Chief Justice, how are they going to supervise the execution of those reliefs that they had granted? Because there is no international police to secure the enforcement of these things. But let us even go into the merit of the case, where they said that from their standpoint, they did not see that there had been any bias or ill will on the part of the government, and that the process was fair for her removal. I'm saying that we respect it. I, as a lawyer, since they are sitting as judges, we only have to respect it. But I disagree. And the reason I disagree is that in terms of going through procedure, we may understand, and we would say that, okay, they followed through what has been laid down in the Constitution. But probably, whether this was canvassed before them, that in the course of time, it was realized that there was some lacuna in the process of removing a Chief Justice, which should be different from the removal of other justices. And I think I've forgotten the title of the case, where Justice Dateba made all the analysis and said that there was actually that lacuna. And it appears that it is to the benefit of the government. So they did not seem to care about that decision. I think it is a J something. But that I'll look for that case. But there's a decision, an authority for that. Beyond that, when we talk about rule of law, it is not just by going through or pointing to the existence of some law to say that, okay, we went through the process of the law. But when it gets to a point that the people in ECOWAS will say that, no, this is bad, then you have to know that even though there is a procedure prescribed or there is a law stated, if that law doesn't sit well with the aspirations and the sensibilities of the majority of the people, then it falls short of what we call the rule of law.
Let me just, for the sake of time, please wrap up for us, and then I would ask you my last question, please.
Good. So, to the extent that they say there was no ill will, there's no bias and all that, I would disagree, because prior to the removal of the Chief Justice, the government, through the then candidate, Mahama, had made their case clear what they intended to do. And that blueprint was what they followed through. So I'm surprised that the ECOWAS Court did not take into consideration all these things to say that, look, there was a concerted or conscious effort to have some kind of charges against.
But how does a court? Yes, there might have been such pronouncements, but how does a court take into consideration or as evidence something that has been said in the media space if they've not been tendered in as evidence?
To be honest with you, the best way to go about it is when we have seen the full judgment and analyze it.
Indeed.
So
But
we do not know what was actually put before them.
Let me ask you this, and if you could answer very briefly for us, please. Does this ruling effectively settle the legal questions surrounding the former Chief Justice's removal, and also what kind of precedent is set for future constitutional office holders who may seek to challenge disciplinary removal processes before regional courts like this one?
In the first place, all this drama should tell us that we may have to put in more provisions to insulate the constitutional bodies from the executive manipulation. That's what we need to do. Because clearly there is a loophole, and that loophole has been cleverly taken advantage of by the current government, where they have succeeded in removing a Chief Justice, right, on what I may call some Trump Act charges. But if we really want to protect our development, our democracy, then we must make sure that this becomes an eye-opener for us, now that we are doing a constitutional review, to find a way of insulating these independent constitutional bodies from executive manipulation.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Alexander Kojokom Aban is a lawyer and also former member of parliament for the Gomoa West constituency of the Central Region. Ghana have made 4 changes to the starting lineup that secured a dramatic 1-0 victory over Panama, with Thomas Partey returning from his visa and forced absence to face England in the crucial Group L clash at the Gillette Stadium tonight. Now, last night, actually, both teams won their opening matches, with Ghana beating. Okay, so that's actually was for the Panama game, but let's talk about what happened last night, where England okay, let me just say Ghana actually put in that defensive effort against England, resulting in a goalless draw. Tell us more about really what's been happening since your own, as in 3 Sports analysis of the events that happened. And I'm talking to my colleague Andrew Sefa, who is with our sports desk.
Yeah, so I've always maintain that if you want to go into a game like that of England, a game of high stakes, you need to put in your best, and every player has to show a lot of heart. And to that end, yesterday was a very good one from the team. Every player ran their socks down. They put in their maximum effort to ensure that Ghana at least finish with a point. What a point does is that it puts Ghana in pole position to qualify for the next round. And so winning would have automatically qualified Ghana to the next round, but a point means Ghana has 4 points together with England, so they are the 2 leaders in Group L. Croatia are closely following by with 3 points, but the performance on the day was absolutely brilliant. I believe that the players stuck to their task, they stuck to their guns. Whatever coach Carlos Queiroz gave to them to execute, they did it to perfection. And to that end, we saw English players get frustrated, the likes of Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham.
And I enjoyed that on the screen.
It doesn't often happen, because they usually enjoy so much when they come up against these lower ranked teams, but Ghana didn't afford them space or time. Anytime they got the ball, they were closing them down quickly, and that's down to the tactical nose of Queiroz. And I would say he's an upgrade over Otto. Since he came, has installed belief in the team. He's instilled that confidence, not just in the team, but also fans go into games knowing that at least the Black Stars can do something. The Black Stars of old can show up. And so I just believe that it sets their platform for the knockout rounds, because that's where you separate the boys from the men, and the actual tournament begins.
I love how you put it. You separate the boys from the men. But you notice, what I have noticed though is that he seems to have a strategy for each of the teams. He had a strategy for Panama, and he said even ahead of the England game that he knew how they played, and we're going to meet them for it. But we have another crucial one with Croatia on Saturday. What should we expect briefly?
I think that in the grand scheme, it might not really matter. Like I stated earlier, we have 4 points. You just need at least 4 points to qualify from the group stage, and the Black Stars have that on board. So maybe you would see the likes of the French players coming, those who have limited opportunity to play. They'll come in to express themselves, might give everybody a run, because it's the World Cup after all, so everybody has to play. You have to feel the atmosphere. So I just believe that maybe he'll change things up a bit, and Thomas Partey may get more minutes, because going forward maybe he might not feature in the knockout round. So I just expect him to change things here and there. But his style, I don't think he would tweak it. He will always be defensive. That's how he's been. He's coached over 40 years and he's always been like that.
Well, I guess we'll be sitting on tenterhooks ahead of Saturday's game. But thank you very much, Andrew Sefa, bringing us updates on what happened with the Black Stars and, of course, what we should expect this Saturday. And that's it for the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Log on to StreetNews.com for more news.
Follow us on social media, Twitter at 3FM927, Facebook at 3FM927, and also on 3news.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. We're coming to you live from our studios here at Adesawe, Kanda. Coming up this afternoon, Bank of Ghana and Securities and Exchange Commission face critical choice as shadow crypto market reaches $3 billion. Also in this bulletin, proposed $210 million Atlantic lithium takeover by Chinese firm raises fresh questions over Ghanaian ownership and local participation in a Woya lithium project. Plus, Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy warns Public Utilities Regulatory Commission's electricity tariff hike is flawed and unjustified.
Reliance on only depreciation of about 0.2% to increase tariff by more than 3% on electricity is unjustified.
I am Christabel Success Trevor. Will bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Don't go away. For staying with us here. Now, Ghana stands at a historic financial crossroads as its rapidly expanding digital assets market reaches an estimated 3 million active users, generating an annual transaction volume of roughly $3 billion. Bank of Ghana and the Securities and Exchange Commission are rushing to regulate a $3 billion shadow crypto market to protect consumers and preserve the sovereignty of the city. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk reports.
Driven by heavy mobile money penetration and persistent currency volatility, this massive shadow economy is forcing an urgent national shift from basic policy announcement to create regulatory architecture. The recent passage of the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act marks a major legislative milestone, giving authorities the power to license and supervise operators. However, financial experts warn that a law is only the beginning. To prevent widespread fraud and severe consumer losses, the country must rapidly establish an interconnected regulatory framework built on strict licensing, aggressive public literacy campaign, and efficient specialized courts. A primary concern for the Bank of Ghana remains monetary sovereignty, as stablecoins like USDT increasingly serve as preferred stores of value for ordinary citizens and local businesses. The nation faces the silent threat of digital dollarization. Regulators must now determine how to monitor large transactions and protect local city without stifling fintech innovation. With digital asset completely excluded from the National Deposit Protection Scheme, officials are urging immediate institutional coordination against financial sectors to secure the ecosystem before next major market scandal.
The proposed acquisition of Atlantic Lithium by Chinese battery materials giant Huayu Cobalt is drawing attention beyond financing and mine development. Concerns have emerged over the future of Ghanaian ownership and local participation provisions embedded in the Ewoya Lithium project mining lease.
Under the mining lease, Atlantic Lithium was required to maintain a listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange to allow Ghanaians to directly own shares in the project, while the Minerals Income Investment Fund, MIF, was also granted an equity participation role. However, Huayu says Atlantic Lithium would be delisted from the Ghana, London and Australian stock exchanges if the acquisition is completed. This raises questions about whether the local ownership objectives that formed part of the lease agreement can still be achieved. While the state's 13% free carried interest appears protected, analysts say the future of MIF's investment and retail Ghanaian shareholders remains uncertain. Based on the proposed offer price, MIF could exit its stake at a marginal loss, while many Ghanaian investors who bought shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange may also face losses. The transition is subject to regulatory approvals, with authorities expected to assess not only the legal aspects of the deal, but also its consistency with Ghana's local participation goals for the Ewoya project.
The executive director at the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, SEMSI, Benjamin Sia, has strongly criticized the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission's recent decision to increase electricity tariffs by more than 3%. Sia labeled the move as unjustified, arguing that it undermines the transparency of the regulatory body's operations.
SEMSI's executive director pointed out that the PURC's reliance on a marginal 0.2% currency depreciation to enforce the tariff hike ignores other vital declining market-driven indicators. He highlighted that inflation has decreased, the weighted average cost of gas has fallen, and the overall energy mix has remained stable compared to previous quarters.
PURC's reliance on only depreciation of about 0.2% to increase tariff by more than 3% on electricity is unjustified. I think that it doesn't bring clarity in their operations, and also feeds into the narrative that they are only there to protect the interests of utility providers and not consumers.
Warning of the adverse side effects of the price hike, Sia noted that such flawed increment create ambiguity among Ghanaians and rarely yield the desired revenue mobilization for utilities.
The way PURC arbitrarily increases tariff to benefit the utility providers and not the consumers will not build consumer trust. The consumer is likely not going to trust, and this is likely going to cause the avoidance of paying bills because consumer will believe that PURC only serve the interest of the utility providers, and for that matter, they will renege on their duty and obligatory practice to pay realistic tariff or pay bills to the utility providers or to the state, and that.
Still on the energy sector, Executive Director of the Africa Sustainable Energy Center, Engineer Justice Offin River, has advocated for Ghana to refine more of its crude oil locally, describing the potential shift as a major game changer for the country's economy. Speaking to 3 Business on the concept of the energy trilemma, which encompasses supply, sustainability, security, and affordability, Offin River explained that local refining directly addresses all 3 pillars. He noted that expanding refinery capacity to directly serve Ghanaians would inch the nation closer to true energy sovereignty.
when you look at the energy trilemma, basically has to do with the supply, the sustainability, and then affordability. Within the trilemma, each of them has a ripple effect on the other. So if we are able to refine from Ghana, and most importantly, expand the refinery, where we'll be able to deliver those oil to Ghanaians, automatically it checks the box of sustainability, inching towards energy sovereignty. It's also checked the box of security. So automatically, I mean, the box of affordability will be checked.
That was Executive Director of the Africa Sustainable Energy Center, Engineer Justice Ohene Akoto there. And that'll be all for Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. I am Christabel Success Treve. Urban Blend with Black Rasta is up next.